Before we dive into this incredible story of trust, betrayal, and unexpected love, drop a comment below and tell us where you're watching from. You're about to witness how a simple test with diamonds changed two lives forever. Enjoy the story. The morning sun cast long shadows across the marble floors of the Sterling mansion as Marcus Sterling stood in his home office, his hands trembling slightly as he opened the velvet-lined jewelry box. At 35, the CEO of Sterling Properties had built an empire worth hundreds of millions, but success had come at a devastating price. 3 years ago, his world had shattered when his wife Vivian and his best friend Richard had stolen $50 million and disappeared together, leaving him broken and unable to trust another soul. Marcus carefully selected 5 of his most precious diamonds from the collection, each worth more than most people made in a year. His jaw clenched as memories of betrayal flooded back. Never again would he be blindsided by someone's greed. Every person who entered his life now faced the test. He climbed the grand staircase to the master bedroom, his footsteps echoing through the empty 15-room mansion. With methodical precision, he placed each diamond on the silk bedspread, arranging them casually as if they had been carelessly left behind. Then he retreated to his office, positioning himself in front of the multiple security monitors that covered every inch of his home. At exactly 9 o'clock, Elena Rodriguez entered through the service entrance. Marcus watched her on the screen as she gathered her cleaning supplies, moving with the quiet efficiency that had impressed him during her 3 weeks of employment. At 29, the Salvadoran immigrant carried herself with a dignity that spoke of inner strength, despite the worn edges of her uniform and the tiredness that never quite left her dark eyes. Elena climbed the stairs to begin her daily routine. Marcus leaned forward, his heart pounding as she approached the master bedroom. This was the moment of truth. Would she prove to be like all the others, drawn to wealth like a moth to flame? The door opened, and Elena stepped inside. She froze instantly upon seeing the diamonds scattered across the bed, her hand flying to her chest in shock. Marcus held his breath, waiting to see greed flicker across her features, waiting for her to glance around nervously before pocketing the stones. Instead, Elena did something that left Marcus speechless. She reached into her cleaning cart and pulled out a tissue, then carefully covered each diamond, one by one. Her lips moved in what appeared to be a silent prayer in Spanish. She rearranged the pillows around the precious stones, creating a protective barrier, then smoothed the bedspread with tender care. From a small notebook in her pocket, Elena tore out a piece of paper and wrote something in careful handwriting. She placed the note on the nightstand and quietly left the room, closing the door gently behind her. Marcus sat stunned, staring at the monitor. This wasn't what was supposed to happen. Everyone had a price. Everyone took what they could get. That's what Vivian had taught him. That's what Richard had confirmed. Unable to contain his curiosity, Marcus hurried upstairs and into the bedroom. The diamonds lay exactly where he had placed them, now carefully protected by Elena's makeshift arrangement. He picked up the note with shaking hands. "Mr. Sterling, I reorganized the valuable items for greater security. Please verify that everything is in order. ER." The note was written in perfect English, despite Elena's accent when she spoke. There was no greed in those words, no hint of temptation, only concern for his property and professionalism in her duty. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus Sterling felt something crack inside the walls he had built around his heart. As he stood holding that simple note, surrounded by diamonds that could have changed Elena's life forever, he realized he might have just met someone who couldn't be bought. But was it real? Or was Elena Rodriguez simply playing a longer game than the others? 3 years earlier, Marcus Sterling had been a different man entirely. He sat in his penthouse office, laughing with his best friend Richard as they celebrated another successful real estate acquisition. Life was perfect. He had a beautiful wife in Vivian, a thriving business, and complete trust in the people closest to him. "You're living the American dream, brother," Richard had said, raising his glass of champagne. Beautiful wife, successful company, and a best friend who'd never betray you. Marcus had believed every word. He and Richard had built Sterling Properties from nothing, starting in a cramped garage after college. Vivian, the socialite he'd met at Harvard, had seemed like the perfect partner, intelligent, charming, and supportive of his ambitions. The betrayal came like a lightning strike on an ordinary Tuesday morning. Marcus had returned early from a business trip to Seattle, eager to surprise Vivian with news of a major deal. Instead, he found empty safes, cleared bank accounts, and a handwritten letter on their bed. Marcus, by the time you read this, Richard and I will be gone. We've been planning this for months. The $50 million was just the beginning. We've also taken the Morrison account, the Henderson portfolio, and the Chicago development project. You always said business was about trust, but you were wrong. It's about opportunity. Vivian. The investigation revealed the depth of their deception. Richard had been siphoning funds for over a year, while Vivian had been gathering confidential client information and selling it to competitors. They had disappeared to the Cayman Islands, leaving Marcus with lawsuits, angry investors, and a shattered sense of reality. 2 years of legal battles followed. Marcus lost 40% of his company, paid millions in settlements, and watched former friends distance themselves. He installed security cameras throughout his mansion, ran background checks on every employee, and developed an obsessive need to test everyone's loyalty before allowing them into his life. His sister Catherine called regularly from Boston, begging him to seek therapy and rejoin society. "You can't live like this forever, Marcus," she pleaded during their last conversation. "You're turning into a prisoner in your own home." But Marcus felt safer behind his walls of technology and suspicion. Until today. Until Elena Rodriguez had shattered his carefully constructed theories about human nature with a simple act of honesty. Elena's alarm buzzed at 4:30 in the morning, the same time it had for the past 4 years since arriving in America. She silently rose from her narrow bed, careful not to wake her 7-year-old son Diego, who slept peacefully clutching his favorite stuffed elephant, the only toy that had survived their journey from El Salvador. In their tiny Queens apartment, Elena prepared Diego's breakfast with military precision. Everything had to be exactly the same blue bowl, the same chair, the same routine. Or Diego's autism would trigger a meltdown that could last for hours. She watched her son's beautiful face as he carefully arranged his cereal in perfect rows, a ritual that both broke her heart and filled it with fierce love. "Mummy has to work today, mi amor," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "Mrs. Chen will take care of you." Diego looked up with his large, expressive eyes that mirrored her own. 5 hours and 23 minutes until you come back," he said in his precise way of speaking. His mind was a calculator when it came to time, even if social interactions remained a mystery. Elena left Diego with Mrs. Chen, the elderly Chinese woman who charged only $20 a day, all Elena could afford for childcare. She then took 2 buses across the city to visit her father Miguel at the state-run nursing facility where he lived with advanced Alzheimer's disease. "Papa, it's Elena," she said softly, holding his weathered hand. Some days he recognized her. Most days he stared blankly at the wall. Today was one of the difficult days. "Who are you?" Miguel asked, his voice confused and frightened. "I'm someone who loves you very much," Elena replied, fighting back tears. She had learned not to correct him on his bad days. It only caused more agitation. After feeding her father his breakfast, Elena caught another bus to Manhattan, arriving at the Sterling mansion at exactly 9 o'clock. She worked for 3 different families, but this job paid the most, $800 a week that she stretched to cover Diego's therapy sessions, her father's medical expenses, and the $300 she sent monthly to her mother in El Salvador. At night, after Diego was asleep, Eleanor studied English online, dreaming of the day she might return to teaching, her profession back home before circumstances forced her to become a refugee in a country that didn't always welcome people like her. Marcus couldn't sleep. He had replayed the security footage dozens of times, studying Elena's reaction to the diamonds from every angle. Her behavior defied everything he thought he knew about human nature. She hadn't even hesitated, No glance around to check for cameras, no moment of temptation, no calculation of their worth. Instead, she had whispered what looked like a prayer in Spanish, her lips moving in gratitude rather than greed. The way she had carefully covered each diamond, arranged the pillows with such tenderness. It was as if she was protecting something sacred rather than coveting something valuable. The next morning, Marcus decided to escalate his test. He deliberately left his leather wallet on the kitchen counter, containing exactly $2,000 in cash, more money than Elena probably saw in a month. Then he retreated to his office to watch and wait. Elena discovered the wallet while cleaning the kitchen around noon. Marcus leaned forward, his heart pounding as he watched her pick it up. She opened it briefly, and Marcus could see her lips moving as she counted the bills, not to steal them, but to ensure everything was accounted for. With methodical care, Eleanor placed the wallet in a manila envelope, sealed it, and wrote another note. She carried it to Marcus's office and placed it prominently on his desk where he couldn't miss it. "Mr. Sterling, I found this in the kitchen. All contents are intact. I suggest a more secure location. ER." Marcus stared at the envelope containing enough money to pay for months of Diego's therapy, enough to move Elena to a better apartment, enough to ease the financial burden that was slowly crushing her spirit. Yet she had sealed it away without a moment's hesitation. That evening, Marcus sat in his study, holding Elena's second note. 2 tests, 2 opportunities for easy money, 2 moments when Elena could have solved her problems with a simple act of theft. Instead, she had chosen integrity over opportunity twice. For the first time since Vivian's betrayal, Marcus felt something stirring in his chest. A dangerous emotion he had sworn never to feel again. It felt suspiciously like trust, and it terrified him more than any business risk he had ever taken. James Morrison, the private investigator Marcus had hired, delivered his report on Elena Rodriguez with the efficiency that had made him the best in New York. The file was thicker than Marcus had expected, filled with details that painted a picture of struggle, sacrifice, and unshakable integrity. Elena Rodriguez, 29 years old, entered the United States 4 years ago on a tourist visa with her then-husband Carlos and 2-year-old son Diego. Morrison read from his notes. Carlos died in a construction accident 18 months later, fell from scaffolding when safety equipment failed. No life insurance, no workers' compensation because he was undocumented. Marcus listened intently as Morrison continued. After Carlos's death, Elena worked multiple jobs: house cleaning, babysitting, restaurant work, anything to survive. Diego was diagnosed with severe autism at age 3. She spent every penny she had on private therapy when the public system had 2-year waiting lists. The investigators' findings revealed a woman who had never asked for handouts, never complained about her circumstances, and never compromised her values, despite desperate need. Former employers universally praised her work ethic, honesty, and dedication. Not one person had a negative word to say about Elena Rodriguez. She sends $300 monthly to her mother in El Salvador, Morrison added. Her mother is caring for Elena's younger siblings after their father, Elena's stepfather, abandoned the family. Elena is literally supporting 2 families on a cleaning woman's salary. Marcus studied the photographs in the file. Elena leaving Diego at therapy sessions, visiting her father at the nursing home, working late into the night at various jobs. In every image, despite the exhaustion evident in her face, she carried herself with dignity and purpose. "There's more," Morrison said. "She's been taking online courses in early childhood development, specifically focused on autism therapy. Apparently, she plans to become a certified therapist herself someday to help other families like hers." As Marcus closed the file, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years: genuine admiration for another human being. Elena wasn't just honest, she was extraordinary. And for the first time since his betrayal, Marcus wanted to do something purely good, with no expectation of return. Marcus made his decision that very night. If Elena wouldn't take money directly, he would find other ways to help her, ways that didn't compromise her pride or raise her suspicions. He had resources, connections, and most importantly, a growing desire to see Elena smile instead of carrying the weight of the world on her shoulders. His first call was to Dr. Sarah Chen, director of the Manhattan Institute for Autism Research. Dr. Chen, I want to establish a scholarship fund for low-income families needing ABA therapy. I have a specific case in mind, a 7-year-old boy named Diego Rodriguez. Within 48 hours, Elena received a call informing her that Diego had been selected for a full scholarship, covering 12 months of intensive applied behavior analysis therapy, valued at $48,000. The scholarship was attributed to the Santos Foundation, a name Marcus had chosen to honor Elena's heritage. Elena's reaction, captured on his security cameras, nearly brought Marcus to tears. She collapsed into a chair, sobbing with relief and gratitude, clutching the letter to her chest. For the first time since he'd known her, Elena's carefully controlled composure cracked, revealing the enormous pressure she had been carrying alone. Next, Marcus contacted Dr. Robert Williams, a specialist in Alzheimer's care. I need the best facility in New York to accept a transfer patient, Miguel Rodriguez, currently at the state facility in Queens. Cost is no object. Miguel was moved to Riverside Manor, an exclusive memory care facility, with all expenses covered by another anonymous, charitable foundation. Elena visited the new facility with wonder, unable to understand how her father had suddenly qualified for such expensive care, but grateful beyond word. Marcus kept copies of every thank you letter Elena wrote to the fictitious foundations. Her words were so humble, so heartfelt, that he began to understand the true depth of her character. She wasn't just honest. She was genuinely good in a way that made his cynical heart ache with longing for redemption. For the first time in 3 years, Marcus felt purpose beyond profit. Watching Elena's burdens lift, seeing the hope return to her eyes, gave him more satisfaction than any business deal he had ever closed. The rainy Thursday morning when Marcus found Elena crying quietly in the laundry room marked a turning point in their carefully maintained professional relationship. She was folding towels with shaking hands, tears streaming silently down her face as she tried to maintain her composure. "Elena, what's wrong?" Marcus asked, surprising himself by using her first name for the first time. She looked up, startled and embarrassed to be caught in a vulnerable moment. "I'm sorry, Mr. Sterling. Diego had a difficult morning at school. Sometimes the sounds and lights become too much for him, and he..." She trailed off, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. Marcus found himself sitting down across from her, abandoning the formal distance he usually maintained. "My sister Catherine has a son with special needs. I know how challenging it can be. Would you like to talk about it?" For the next hour, Elena shared stories about Diego's struggles and triumphs, about the isolation of parenting a child with autism in a foreign country, about the daily heartbreak of watching your child navigate a world that doesn't understand him. Marcus listened without judgment, offering resources and connections he thought might. "You know," Elena said softly, "in El Salvador, I was a teacher. I always dreamed of helping children, but I never imagined I would learn so much about patience and unconditional love from my own son." Marcus shared his own story. The betrayal, the walls he had built, the fear that had consumed him for 3 years. "I test everyone," he admitted. "I look for the moment when they'll show their true nature, when greed or ambition will override their better judgment." Elena studied his face with compassionate eyes. "Mr. Sterling, trust isn't about avoiding being hurt. It's about choosing to believe that not everyone will hurt you. Some people are worth the risk." Her words hit him like a physical blow. In that moment, Marcus realized that Elena saw through all his defenses, understood his pain, and still chose to believe in his capacity for good. That evening, he disabled half the security cameras in his house, a symbolic gesture that felt like stepping into sunlight after years of darkness. Marcus's invitation to dinner caught Elena completely off guard. "I'd like you to join me for dinner tonight," he said formally. "As an employee, of course. We can discuss the household management and any needs you might have." Elena accepted hesitantly, unsure of the boundaries between employer and employee. But as they sat in his elegant dining room, the conversation quickly moved beyond professional matters to deeply personal territory. Vivian and Richard took more than money, Marcus revealed over wine that Elena barely touched. They took my ability to trust, to believe in good people. For 3 years, I've lived like a hermit, testing everyone, waiting for them to prove my worst assumptions correct. Elena's response surprised him with its directness. And what did your test tell you about me? Marcus met her eyes across the table. That you're either the most honest person I've ever met or the most sophisticated con artist in New York. Instead of being offended, Elena laughed, a sound Marcus realized he had never heard from her before. Mr. Sterling, if I were a con artist, don't you think I would have started with something bigger than returning your wallet? As the evening progressed, Eleanor shared her own story of loss and betrayal. Carlos wasn't perfect, but he was good. When he died, I blamed myself for not insisting he use better safety equipment. I carried that guilt along with grief, responsibility, and fear. You build walls to protect yourself, but sometimes walls also keep good things from entering. Marcus felt something crack inside his chest, not breaking, but opening. How do you do it? How do you keep trusting after being hurt? Because the alternative is living half a life, Elena said simply. My son has autism, which means he struggles to connect with people. But he tries every day because connection is what makes us human. If Diego can be brave enough to keep trying, so can I. That night, Marcus removed more cameras from his home, feeling lighter with each one he disconnected. For the first time in years, he fell asleep without checking security monitors, trusting that his home and his heart were safe. The transformation began with a business proposal that would change both their lives. Marcus appeared in the kitchen where Elena was working, carrying architectural plans and an expression of nervous excitement she had never seen before. Elena, I want to discuss something with you, not as your employer, but as... He paused, searching for the right words. As someone who values your insight. He spread the blueprints across the kitchen island, revealing plans for a community center. I want to convert one of my commercial properties into a resource center for immigrant families with special needs children. Therapy services, support groups, educational resources, everything families like yours need but can't access. Elena stared at the plans, her heart racing. This is incredible, Mr. Sterling, but why are you showing this to me? Because I need someone who understands these families' real needs to help design the programs. Someone who's lived this experience. Marcus's voice was earnest. I'd like to offer you the position of program coordinator with a salary of $75,000 annually. Elena's hands trembled as she traced the blueprints. You want me to help create this? I want you to lead it, Marcus corrected. You're a natural leader, Eleanor. You coordinate volunteers, translate for families who don't speak English, organize resources. You do all of this already in your community. Now imagine doing it with proper funding and support. Over the following weeks, they worked side by side, visiting the property, meeting with contractors, and developing programs. Eleanor watched Marcus interact with the children they hoped to serve, seeing him get down on their level, speak to them with patience and genuine interest. She realized that beneath his protective exterior lived a man with extraordinary capacity for compassion. Marcus, meanwhile, observed Eleanor coordinate volunteers, advocate for families, and transform abstract ideas into practical solutions. She was brilliant, dedicated, and possessed a natural authority that inspired everyone around her. He found himself looking forward to their planning sessions, treasuring every moment of collaboration. Their professional partnership was becoming something neither had planned for, a deep, abiding connection that transcended employer and employee boundaries. The day Marcus met Diego officially marked another milestone in their evolving relationship. Eleanor had received an emergency call. Mrs. Chen was ill and couldn't watch Diego, so Marcus had volunteered to drive Elena to pick up her son from school. Diego emerged from the building in the midst of a sensory overload meltdown, overwhelmed by the noise and chaos of dismissal time. Elena knelt beside him, speaking softly in Spanish, but he continued to rock back and forth, his hands covering his ears. Marcus watched for a moment, then quietly approached and sat on the ground several feet away from Diego. Without speaking, he pulled out his phone and began playing a simple pattern game, arranging colored blocks on the screen in geometric sequences. Diego's rocking gradually slowed as he became curious about the patterns. Marcus continued playing, making no attempt to engage the boy directly, just creating a calm, predictable visual rhythm that seemed to soothe Diego's overwhelmed nervous system. After 10 minutes, Diego crept closer, drawn by the orderly progression of colors and shapes. Marcus handed him the phone without a word, and Diego began creating his own patterns, finding peace in the structured activity. "He likes you," Elena whispered, tears in her eyes as she watched her son voluntarily interact with Marcus. Later that week, Marcus visited Miguel at his new care facility. The older man was having one of his clearer days and recognized that Marcus was important to Elena, even if he couldn't quite place the relationship. "You take care of my Elena," Miguel said, gripping Marcus's hand with surprising strength. "She is strong, but everyone needs someone to care for them too. She gives so much. Make sure someone gives back to her," Marcus promised, understanding that he was receiving a father's blessing even as Miguel's mind wandered back into the fog of Alzheimer's. Walking out of the facility, Marcus realized he had found something he thought was lost forever: the possibility of family, of belonging somewhere, of being needed not for his wealth but for his heart. The scandal erupted on a Tuesday morning when Marcus woke to find paparazzi photographs plastered across every gossip website and tabloid in New York. The headlines screamed sensational accusations: billionaire's desperate housemaid, romance or gold-digging scheme. The photos had been taken outside Diego's therapy center, showing Marcus and Elena walking together, his hand supportively on her back as she carried Diego's therapy bag. Other images showed Elena in the Sterling mansion, touching various expensive items, though the photos conveniently cropped out the cleaning supplies in her hands, making it appear she was admiring or coveting the objects. The article was a masterpiece of innuendo and character assassination. It suggested that Eleanor had manipulated Marcus by using her autistic son to gain sympathy, that she was a calculating immigrant who had identified a vulnerable wealthy man and systematically seduced him. Former employers, who had clearly been paid for their cooperation, provided quotes describing Eleanor as ambitious and always talking about rich families she worked for. The story painted Marcus as a naive victim of a sophisticated con artist, while portraying Elena as a manipulative woman who had exploited both her child's disability and her employer's loneliness for financial gain. Within hours, photographers surrounded Elena's apartment building, Diego's school, and the nursing home where Miguel lived. Diego, already sensitive to changes in routine and environment, became completely overwhelmed by the chaos and attention. Elena watched the news coverage in horror, not for her own reputation, but for the impact on her son. Diego couldn't understand why strangers were shouting questions at him, why his carefully ordered world had suddenly become unpredictable and frightening. The Salvadoran community was divided, some supporting Elena as a hard-working woman being unfairly attacked, others questioning whether she had forgotten her place and reached too high above her station. The judgment from her own people hurt almost as much as the media scrutiny. Elena's resignation letter was brief and heartbreaking in its dignity. Marcus found it on his desk Wednesday morning, written in her careful handwriting on simple notebook paper. "Dear Mr. Sterling, I am submitting my resignation effective immediately. I cannot continue to work for you while this situation brings negative attention to your reputation and causes distress to my son. Thank you for the opportunity to work in your home. I wish you well. Sincerely, Elena Rodriguez." Marcus found her packing her cleaning supplies in the service entrance, her movements efficient but her eyes red from crying. "Elena, please don't do this. This scandal will blow over. We can weather this together." She looked up at him with a composure that broke his heart. "Mr. Sterling, you don't understand what this means for someone like me. For you, this is a temporary inconvenience that your lawyers and publicists can manage. For me, this is my life falling apart. But the community center project, find someone else. Elena said firmly. Someone whose past won't be dissected in tabloids. Someone who won't bring shame to your charitable work. Despite Marcus's protests, Elena moved with Diego to an even smaller apartment in the Bronx, taking night cleaning jobs at office buildings to avoid daytime photographers. She refused all of Marcus's attempts to help, returning his calls unanswered and his letters unopened. Marcus threw himself into damage control, hiring the best crisis management firm in New York to clear Elena's name. But every public statement seemed to make the situation worse, adding fuel to the narrative that he was being manipulated by a cunning woman who had played him perfectly. For 2 months, they lived in separate worlds of misery. Marcus rattled around his empty mansion, realizing that Elena had brought more than cleaning to his home. She had brought life, warmth, and the possibility of love. Elena struggled with longer hours, less pay, and Diego's continued distress over the upheaval in their routine. Both realized they had lost something precious, but pride and circumstances kept them apart when they needed each other most. The call came at 2:17 in the morning, Elena's voice barely recognizable through panic and tears. "Marcus, I'm sorry to call, but Diego is in the hospital and I don't know what to do." A severe thunderstorm had triggered one of Diego's worst meltdowns ever. His sensory system, already fragile, had completely shut down, leading to seizure-like symptoms that terrified Elena. She had called an ambulance, but the emergency room doctors were unfamiliar with autism-related medical crises. Marcus arrived at Mount Sinai Hospital 20 minutes later, still in pajamas, but accompanied by Dr. Jennifer Walsh, the city's leading pediatric neurologist specializing in autism. He had called her from the car, waking her from sleep and asking her to meet them at the hospital immediately. "The neurological episodes can mimic seizures," Dr. Walsh explained to the emergency room staff, "but they require completely different treatment protocols for children with severe autism." While Diego was stabilized and moved to a private pediatric room, Elena sat in the waiting area, completely overwhelmed. The media attention, the move, the financial stress, and now Diego's medical crisis had pushed her beyond her breaking point. Marcus sat beside her, not speaking, just present. When she finally collapsed against his shoulder, sobbing uncontrollably, he wrapped his arms around her and let her release months of accumulated pain and fear. "I missed you," Elena whispered against his chest. "Every day, I missed you. I know I was foolish to think we could make this work, but seeing Diego like this made me realize that you and Diego are my family. You're the people I call when the world falls apart." Marcus held her tighter. "I've been miserable without you. I realized that love isn't about protecting yourself from pain. It's about finding someone worth facing pain alongside." As dawn broke over New York City, Diego sleeping peacefully with his sensory needs finally properly managed, Marcus and Elena made a decision. The scandal, the judgment, the obstacles, none of it mattered as much as being together. Marcus's decision to go public with the complete truth was both a risk and an act of love. He scheduled an exclusive interview with Barbara Collins, the most respected journalist in New York, known for her integrity and thorough research. "Ms. Collins, I want to tell you the real story of Elena Rodriguez and our relationship," Marcus began, his voice steady despite the magnitude of what he was about to reveal. "But first, I need you to understand something. Elena doesn't know I'm doing this interview. She would try to stop me because she puts everyone else's needs before her own." For 90 minutes, Marcus laid out the complete timeline of their relationship. He described the diamond test, Elena's consistent integrity, his investigation of her background, and his decision to help her anonymously. He showed Barbara the security footage of Elena protecting his valuables and returning his wallet, the thank you letters she had written to fictitious foundations, and documentation of every anonymous donation he had made on her behalf. "I fell in love with Elena Rodriguez because she's the most genuine person I've ever met," Marcus said directly to the camera. "She didn't pursue me. I pursued her. She didn't manipulate me. She tried to maintain professional boundaries even when I wanted to cross them. She didn't use her son to gain sympathy. She tried to keep her personal struggles separate from her work." Marcus then made an announcement that stunned viewers across the country. "I'm establishing the Diego Rodriguez Sterling Foundation with an initial donation of $50 million. This foundation will provide comprehensive support for immigrant families with special needs children, therapy services, legal assistance, educational resources, and community support." The interview concluded with Marcus's declaration, "I intend to ask Elena Rodriguez to marry me, not because she needs rescuing, but because I need her. She taught me that trust isn't something you test, it's something you give. She gave me back my faith in humanity, and I want to spend the rest of my life proving worthy of that gift." Within hours of the broadcast, public opinion shifted dramatically. The security footage went viral, with millions of viewers sharing videos of Elena's protective care of Marcus's possessions and her humble thank you letters to anonymous benefactors. Elena watched the interview from her small apartment, tears streaming down her face as she realized Marcus had risked his reputation and privacy to defend her honor and declare his love publicly. Marcus recreated the scene from that first morning, but this time with joy instead of cynicism. He carefully arranged diamonds on his bedroom comforter, but now they spelled out "Casa comigo," "marry me" in Portuguese, the language Elena had taught him during their evenings planning the community center. Elena entered the mansion for the first time in months, invited back not as an employee, but as the woman Marcus loved. When she saw the diamonds arranged in words instead of carelessly scattered, she laughed through her tears, understanding the beautiful symmetry of the moment. Marcus appeared in the doorway, no longer hiding behind security monitors, but standing openly before her. "Elena Rodriguez, you taught me that trust isn't something you test, it's something you give. You returned my faith in humanity when I thought it was lost forever. Will you build a family with me?" Before Elena could answer, Diego burst into the room, carrying a small velvet box that Marcus had entrusted to him. The boy's face glowed with excitement as he presented the box to his mother, understanding that this moment would make Marcus officially part of their family. Inside were 2 rings, an elegant but simple engagement ring for Elena, and a special Son of the Heart ring for Diego, symbolizing Marcus's commitment to both mother and child. "Yes," Elena whispered, accepting both the proposal and the promise of family it represented. "Yes," to all of it. As Marcus slipped the ring onto Elena's finger and the family ring onto Diego's, the 3 of them embraced in the room where their story had begun with a test of character and was now concluding with a celebration of love. The community center opened 6 months later with Elena as its director and Marcus as its proudest supporter. Elena became an American citizen through marriage. Miguel enjoyed precious moments of clarity to meet his new son-in-law, and Diego flourished in his therapies while gaining a father who understood and celebrated his unique way of seeing the world. Their love story had transformed from a tale of suspicion and testing into a testament to the power of trust, integrity, and the courage to believe that some people are exactly who they appear to be. Genuinely good, worthy of love, and capable of healing even the most broken hearts.